So I was one of 7 black kids in my set of classes. We took the academically gifted classes, then transitioned to the pre-international baccalaureate program, then into the international baccalaureate program. And you would think that we would have joined together. It was the late 90s and early 2000s. Rodney King hadn't too long ago been beaten. Ice Cube and them were effing the police. Whoop, There It Is was still hot. And Kirk Franklin had gotten together a lot of people to sing a song about how friends were there to catch you if you were falling. There was a shoulder that you could lean on, but let me tell you, none of that was true for me. Man, they talked about me scandalously. One week I was in on the group. The next week somebody wasn't my friend. And I know now that that's just how kids are sometimes while they're going through puberty. But since I was a precocious youth, I never quite experienced the changes in hormones at the same time as everyone else, and I was also much more sensitive to the world and its suffering. When I was 7, I saw my first homeless person, and I asked my mom why he was sleeping under a tree, barely wrapped up in a dirty blanket. And she told me he was homeless, and I just cried and cried. I couldn't understand how someone couldn't have a home. I say all of this to say I've always valued true connections, and I still find it difficult to understand how people say one thing and do another, but that's just how it is. So they all took school pictures together, and they didn't tell me that they were doing it, and they didn't invite me to take one, not one of them. There were only 7 of us, and they couldn't even make room for me. I'm telling you these stories so that you know that you're not alone in your loneliness, not because we are victims, though there have been countless victims to apathy and insensitivity, but because we are survivors. We'll let them bear the burden of their deeds. Knowing that Matthew 12:36-37 says, I tell you, on the day of judgment, you will have to give an account for every careless word you utter. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. This is a loaded scripture, one that we would like to use as ammunition against our adversaries, but what of the words we've spoken over our own lives? I'm so ugly. I'm so fat, no one will love me. I'm an alcoholic just like my grandfather. I don't want to live anymore. Well, we want to give an account for those things we've spoken over ourselves. Matthew 22:34-40 tells us about a time when the Pharisees try to catch Jesus up in some mess. This expert in the law asked Jesus, what was the greatest commandment? And in verse 37-40, he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment, and a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. We've probably heard this scripture so many times, but have we truly paid attention to it? Because we do a great job at loving God for the most part. And oh, how we love to try to please people. But the scripture said, love our neighbors as ourselves, and we have been struggling with that loving ourselves part. Have we still fulfilled the law if we've loved God and our neighbors, but have not loved ourselves? I'm so glad that we are reminded that we could never have fulfilled the law ourselves, and that Christ came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it on our behalves, because Lord, I'm trying to love myself and be content with this thorn in my flesh, but I haven't quite gotten it like Paul yet. I know your grace should be sufficient, but there are still things I need. So I encourage you to say just 3 positive things about yourself today. Space them out and set your timer. While you're eating your breakfast, say, I am loved by God. While eating your lunch, say, he thought I was worth saving. While eating your dinner, say, his eye is on the sparrow, so I know he's watching me. Notice, these aren't self-gratifying statements or self-affirmations. These are God-affirming statements that are infallible. You start off with the infallible statements, those that can't be refuted. Then slowly but surely you'll notice when you look at yourself in the mirror, you'll say, I'm not so bad after all. Then one day you'll look and say, looking good, self. When we believe the things that God said about us, the things that people say matter less and less. And once you see what truly matters, tell your brothers. It's only what you've done for the Lord that will last. So help someone else see their value so that they too can move forward into the destiny that God so lovingly designed for them. For us all, you got this.